Maria Lopez was born in a small village in Colombia, where the days were long, the air was warm, and life moved slowly. Her home was made of wood and clay, with a tin roof that rattled when it rained. There was no electricity most of the time, and water came from a well behind the house. But even though her family had very little money, Maria's world was full of color, especially music. Maria was only 5 years old when both of her parents died in a car accident. It was a dark day for her and her younger brother, Carlos. With no other family nearby, they were taken in by their grandmother, Abuela Rosa. Abuela Rosa was strong like steel but gentle like a breeze. She had worked as a cleaner all her life, cleaning houses for rich families in the city. When she could, she brought Maria along to help carry buckets or sweep floors. From a young age, Maria loved music. She didn't have a radio at home, but whenever she visited the houses where her grandmother worked, she would listen closely to the sounds coming from the big machines called stereos. Sometimes, classical music played softly in the background. Maria didn't know the names of the songs or the composers, but she felt them in her heart. The notes danced in her mind, and she would hum them quietly while sweeping or folding clothes. One day when Maria was 8, she saw something magical. A piano. It stood tall and proud in the living room of a large house where Abuela Rosa cleaned. The piano was black and shiny, like polished night. Maria stared at it with wide eyes. She wanted to touch it so badly, but she knew better than to get too close. Those things were not for people like her. Still, every time they went to that house, Maria would find excuses to pass by the living room and look at the piano. One day, when no one was watching, she gently pressed one of the keys. A soft note rang out like a bell. That moment stayed with her forever. She started making her own instruments out of whatever she could find. She stretched rubber bands over boxes to make guitars. She tapped on pots and pans like drums. She used sticks and stones to create rhythm. Music became her escape, her friend, and her secret joy. Back in the village, life was hard. Money was always tight, and sometimes there wasn't enough food for everyone. Maria learned early how to work, washing clothes, cooking meals, helping her grandmother clean houses in town. But even during the hardest days, she never stopped humming, tapping, or dreaming about music. At school, Maria wasn't the best student. She struggled with reading and writing, mostly because she often missed classes to help at home. Teachers didn't pay much attention to her, thinking she would grow up to do the same jobs as her grandmother. But one teacher, Miss Elena, noticed how Maria always tapped her fingers on the desk during lessons. Curious, Miss Elena asked her once why she did that. "I'm listening to a song," Maria said shyly. Miss Elena smiled and gave her a piece of paper with some musical notes drawn on it. "Do you recognize this?" she asked. Maria looked at it carefully. She couldn't read it, but she recognized the pattern. "It sounds like this," she said, humming the melody. Miss Elena was amazed. She realized that Maria had what is called a musical ear, the ability to hear and repeat music without ever being taught. From that day on, Miss Elena tried to teach Maria more about music during lunch breaks. She showed her simple songs on the school keyboard and helped her understand the basics of rhythm and notes. But soon after, Miss Elena moved away to another city, and Maria was left on her own again. Years passed. Maria grew taller and stronger. By the time she was 15, she was working full-time with her grandmother, cleaning houses and doing odd jobs. Still, she carried music inside her like a secret fire. When she turned 18, Maria got a job with a wealthy family in the city. They lived in a huge house with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Their youngest son, Javier, was arrogant and spoiled. He liked to tease Maria, calling her names and making jokes about her poor background. One day, he caught her standing near the piano in the living room. "What are you looking at, maid? You think you can play this?" He laughed. Maria blushed and looked down. "No, senor. she whispered. Javier smirked. Good. This is for people who matter. Even though she kept her head low, Maria's heart burned with something deeper than shame. It was a quiet promise. One day, she thought, I will sit at that piano, and I will show you. Though she had never been taught properly, Maria continued to learn on her own. She listened to music online when she could use her grandmother's phone. She watched videos of pianists and tried to copy their hand movements. She practiced silently, using her fingers on tables and chairs as if they were keys. And so, even before the world knew her name, Maria Lopez was already becoming someone special. Not because she had money or education, but because she had heart, memory, and a dream that refused to die. Of course, here's an expanded version of Part 2. Written in simple English, around 1,000 words, and designed to be interesting and easy to understand. Years passed. Maria was now 24 years old. Life had not changed much. She still worked, hard cleaning houses, washing clothes, and cooking meals. But inside her heart, the dream of music never died. She kept listening, learning, and practicing whenever she could. Even though she never got formal training or touched a real piano often, she could play songs in her head with perfect timing and feeling. One day, everything changed. Maria was hired again by Javier's family, the same rich family where she had once stood near the piano and been mocked. Javier was now a successful lawyer living in the city. His parents were older and needed help around the house, so they offered Maria a live-in job as their cleaner. She agreed, even though she remembered how cruel Javier had been to her before. The house was just as big as she remembered. There was a dining room that could fit 10 people, a kitchen full of shiny appliances, and yes, the grand piano in the living room. It still looked beautiful, untouched, and lonely. Javier still lived there too. He had grown up, but not in the way you hope. He was still proud, still rude, and still thought he was better than everyone else. He liked showing off his money, his education, and his life. He made fun of Maria for being poor and uneducated. He would sometimes ask her questions about art or music, knowing she didn't go to college, just to laugh at her answers. But Maria stayed quiet. She did her work well and kept to herself. Still, Javier couldn't stop teasing her. One evening, he decided to humiliate her in front of his friends. It was the night of a big dinner party. Javier had invited many of his wealthy friends, lawyers, doctors, business people, and their wives. They all dressed in expensive clothes and talked loudly about their travels, their jobs, and how smart they were. Maria moved quietly through the house, serving drinks, cleaning tables, and making sure everything was perfect. At one point, the group moved into the living room. Someone turned on soft classical music from the speaker system. A woman asked Javier, "Do you play any instruments?" Javier laughed. "Oh no, I'm too busy for that." But guess what? Our cleaner used to think she could play piano. Everyone turned to look at Maria, who was standing near the door holding a tray of empty glasses. "Really?" someone said, surprised. "She actually used to stare at this piano like it belonged to her," Javier said, smirking. "Why don't you show them, Maria? Play something." There was laughter. Some guests smiled nervously, unsure if this was a joke. Others laughed openly. Maria felt her face turn red. She wanted to say no. She wanted to walk away. But she also felt something else. Fire inside her chest. She slowly walked toward the piano. Everyone watched her. Her hands were shaking, but she sat down on the bench anyway. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then she placed her fingers on the keys. And then, magic happened. Her fingers began to move. The first notes were gentle, like raindrops falling on a window. Then came the melody, smooth, powerful, and full of emotion. She was playing Nocturne in E-flat major by Chopin. She had heard it many times online and practiced it silently in her mind for years. The room went silent. The guests stopped talking. Javier's mouth dropped open. No one expected this. The music filled the air like sunlight after a storm. It was beautiful, deep, and full of feeling. Maria played every note perfectly. Her fingers danced across the keys with grace and power. She wasn't thinking about the rich people watching her. She wasn't thinking about being poor or being teased. She was only thinking about the music, the thing she had loved since she was a little girl. When she finished, there was a long silence. Then suddenly applause broke out. "Wow!" someone shouted. "That was amazing! I can't believe she did that!" Javier stood frozen, unable to speak. His face was pale. He had meant to embarrass Maria, but instead, he had given her the stage. One of the guests, a music teacher named Dr. Luisa Moreno, approached Maria after the performance. "Where did you learn to play like that?" she asked gently. Maria looked down. I never learned, ma'am. I just listened to music and tried to remember." Dr. Moreno was shocked. "You mean you taught yourself?" Maria nodded shyly. That night changed everything. After the party, Dr. Moreno spoke to Maria again. "You have a gift, Maria, real talent. If you want, I can help you learn more, properly." Maria stared at her, eyes wide. "You mean, like, take lessons?" "Yes," Dr. Moreno said. "You deserve it." The morning after the piano performance, Maria woke up expecting everything to return to normal. She got out of bed quietly, put on her uniform, and started cleaning the house like every other day. But something was different. She could feel it in the air. Javier avoided her all day. He didn't make any jokes or tease her like usual. The other staff members whispered when they passed her in the hallway. Even the gardener gave her a strange look, as if seeing her for the first time. Then, later that week, things began to change. Quickly. Dr. Luisa Moreno, the music teacher who had spoken to Maria at the party, called her. She told Maria that she had shared the video of her playing with some of her friends, and now many people wanted to hear more from her. One of those friends was a famous pianist named Professor Diego Ramirez. He had listened to the recording and was deeply impressed. Professor Ramirez offered to give Maria free lessons. Maria couldn't believe it. She read the message again and again to make sure she understood. Someone famous, someone respected, actually, believed in her. She started taking piano lessons once a week with Dr. Moreno and sometimes with Professor Ramirez, too. They taught her how to read music, how to control her fingers better, and how to play songs she had never even heard before. It was hard at first. Reading notes and understanding rhythm was new to her. But Maria worked harder than anyone else. She practiced for hours every day, even when her hands hurt. But just as things were starting to go well for Maria, trouble began to follow. Javier found out about the piano lessons. He became angry. He felt embarrassed that Maria had proven him wrong. Worse, he felt like people were giving her attention that he thought should belong to him. So he tried to stop her. He told his parents that Maria was stealing their piano recordings. He said she had broken into his room and taken money. He even threatened to call the police if she didn't stop playing. Maria was scared. She knew Javier came from a powerful family. If they believed him, she could lose her job, or worse, get arrested. At the same time, some people in her own village began talking badly about her. They said she was getting too big for her boots. Some said she was forgetting where she came from. Others said she was lucky and didn't deserve this chance. Even though she was learning so much and making progress every day, Maria started to feel alone. She cried many nights, wondering if it was worth it. Was she really good enough? Or had she just been lucky that night? Doubt crept into her heart like weeds in a garden. One day during a lesson, Professor Ramirez noticed Maria was quiet and sad. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. Maria told him everything about Javier, the threats, the lies, and even the voices back home saying she wasn't good enough. Professor Ramirez listened carefully. Then he smiled and said, "Maria, talent is rare, but courage is rarer. You have both." His words gave her strength. Still, the road ahead was not easy. Javier kept trying to ruin her. He spread rumors online that Maria was fake. He said someone must have edited the video of her playing. Some people believed him. Others didn't. Maria faced more challenges than most musicians ever do. She didn't have a rich family to support her. She didn't go to a fancy school. And now she had enemies who wanted to see her fail. But through it all, one thing stayed strong inside her: her love for music. She remembered her grandmother's voice, telling her, "No matter what they say, don't let anyone steal your joy." She remembered Miss Elena, her old teacher, who saw something special in her when no one else did. She remembered the sound of that piano the first time she touched it, and how it felt like magic. So Maria kept going. She kept practicing. She kept learning. She kept believing. And slowly, the world began to notice. A local news channel heard about her story and asked to interview her. When they played the video of her playing Chopin, thousands of people watched it online. Many left comments saying how inspired they were by her journey. Some wealthy donors reached out to help her pay for more lessons. A small music school invited her to perform in front of students. For the first time, Maria felt like maybe, just maybe, sure, she could turn this dream into a real life. But there was still more to come, because the next part of her journey would either break her or make her shine brighter than ever. Absolutely. Here's the expanded version of Part 4 Day, written in simple English, around 1,000 words, and made to be interesting and easy to understand. After the interview with the local news channel, Maria's life began to change fast, like a storm that suddenly turns into sunshine. The video of her playing the piano at Javier's house had gone viral again, this time with thousands more views. People from all over Colombia were talking about her story, a poor cleaner who taught herself to play music just by listening and dreaming. One day, Maria got a call she would never forget. It was from a famous music school in New York City. They had seen the video and read the news stories. They offered her a chance to study under one of the most respected piano teachers in the world, for free. Maria couldn't believe it. She sat down on her bed, phone still in hand, heart beating fast. A real chance. A real future. But not everyone was happy for her. Javier found out about the offer and became even angrier than before. He didn't want Maria to leave. He wanted to keep her where he thought she belonged, cleaning his house, being quiet, and staying invisible. He tried everything to stop her. First, he told his parents that Maria had stolen something from them. Then he said she had broken their rules and should be fired. When that didn't work, he threatened her. "If you leave," he said one day, standing close and speaking low, "I'll say you stole from us. I'll tell the school you're lying. No one will believe a poor maid." Maria felt fear crawl up her spine. She knew Javier had power. His family was rich and well-connected. But deep inside, another feeling rose. Something stronger than fear. Hope. She talked to Dr. Luisa Moreno and Professor Ramirez. They believed in her. Together, they helped her gather proof of her good behavior. Letters from neighbors, messages from her grandmother, even videos of her lessons. They sent everything to the school in New York, and the school believed her. They told Maria to come. No matter what, so Maria packed her bags. The day she left Colombia was one she would never forget. Her grandmother hugged her so tight it felt like she'd never let go. "Make us proud," Abuela Rosa whispered. "But more than that, make yourself proud." Maria stepped onto the plane with tears in her eyes and hope in her heart. New York was nothing like her village. It was loud, fast, and full of people rushing everywhere. But the music school was peaceful. Inside there were pianos in every room, students practicing hard, and teachers who loved music as much as she did. At first, Maria struggled. Everyone else had grown up learning music properly. They could read notes faster than she could blink. They had played in big concerts since they were kids. Maria felt small again. But she worked harder than anyone. She stayed late in the practice rooms. She asked questions. She watched other students play and learned from them. Slowly, she improved. Professor Ramirez visited her once during her second year. When he heard her play, he smiled and said, "You're not catching up anymore, Maria. You're leading." That moment gave her the confidence she needed. Then came the biggest test of all. The school held a concert at Carnegie Hall, one of the most famous music venues in the world. Only the best students were chosen to perform. Guess who got picked? Maria backstage. She was nervous. She looked at the crowd through the curtain. Hundreds of people were sitting there waiting. Some were famous musicians, some were reporters, some were rich donors, and somewhere in the back row she saw Javier. Her heart stopped. He had come all the way to New York, not to support her, but to see her fail. She took a deep breath. Then she walked onto the stage. The lights were bright. The silence was thick. She sat down at the piano, and then she played. She played like she had never played before. Her fingers flew across the keys. Every note was full of pain, joy, struggle, and hope. She played the same Chopin piece that had started it all, Nocturne in E-flat major. When she finished, the hall was silent for a long moment. Then, applause, loud, powerful, endless. People stood up. Some were crying. Others clapped so hard their hands turned red. Maria stood up and bowed. And when she looked into the crowd, Javier was gone. He had slipped out before anyone could see him leave. The next morning, newspapers wrote about her performance. One headline said, "From maid to maestro, Colombian cleaner steals hearts at Carnegie Hall." Maria had done it. She had broken through the glass ceiling that once kept her locked outside the world of music. She returned home to Colombia later, that year, to give a free concert in her village. Thousands came to watch. Children sat on their parents' laps. Old men wiped their eyes. Her grandmother sat in the front row, smiling proudly. Maria wasn't just a cleaner anymore. She was a musician, a teacher, a symbol of hope, a woman who had been mocked, doubted, and pushed aside, but who had never given up. And now, the world was finally listening. After her amazing performance at Carnegie Hall, Maria's life changed forever. She became known not just as a talented pianist, but as someone who had beaten the odds. People from all over the world started to learn about her story. How she grew up poor, how she cleaned houses for a living, and how she taught herself to play piano just by listening and dreaming. She wasn't just playing music anymore. She was telling a story with every note, and people were listening. Maria kept performing across the world. She played in big cities like London, Paris, Tokyo, and Rio de Janeiro. Every time she sat down at the piano, she remembered where she came from, her village, her grandmother, the house where she used to clean floors and stare at the piano, like it was magic. But even though she was now famous, Maria never forgot her roots. She decided to do something special. She started a foundation called Keys of Hope, a program that helps poor children learn to play music for free. She believed that talent could be found anywhere, even in the quiet corners of small villages or in the hearts of kids who had never touched an instrument before. Her foundation gave instruments, lessons, and support to thousands of young musicians who couldn't afford them. She even traveled to schools and community centers, giving talks and encouraging children to follow their dreams, no matter what others said. One day, during one of her visits to a school in Colombia, a little girl came up to her after her talk. "Miss Maria," the girl asked shyly, "how did you keep going when everyone laughed at you?" Maria smiled and got down on her knees so they were eye to eye. "I cried a lot," she said honestly. I felt scared. I thought maybe I didn't belong. But I also remembered something my grandmother told me. If your heart beats with passion, don't let anyone make it stop. So I kept going. The girl nodded, eyes wide with hope. Stories like this happened again and again. Maria became more than a musician. She became a hero to many. Even Hollywood took notice. A film studio offered to make a movie based on her life. It was called From Silence to Symphony. The movie showed everything: her childhood, her pain, her rise, and her victory. When it came out, people cried, cheered, and left theaters feeling inspired. In interviews, Maria always said the same thing. Talent isn't born in fancy schools or rich homes. It's born in the heart. And if you protect that heart and keep believing, nothing can stop you. As the years passed, Maria continued to perform and teach. Her music reached millions, but more importantly, her message reached even more. Back in her village, things began to change. Children started learning music. A small music school opened near her old home. Even the local government helped build a small cultural center where kids could go to learn instruments, dance, paint, and act. Maria's success had lit a fire in her whole town. When she visited, people greeted her like a queen. Kids ran up to her asking for autographs. Old neighbors hugged her and cried. She always stayed humble, always thanked everyone who had helped her along the way. But perhaps the most touching moment came one day when she returned to Javier's old house. It had been sold to a new family. They had turned the living room into a small music space for neighborhood children. Guess what stood proudly in the middle of the room? The same piano, the one where it had all started. Maria walked over and gently pressed a key. The sound rang out clearly. She smiled, then she sat down and played. This time there was no mockery, no lies, no fear, only music, only peace. Years later, when Maria was older, a documentary was made about her life. It showed her journey from maid to international star. It showed her helping kids, fighting for fairness, and proving that talent knows no class. At the end of the film, the narrator said, "Maria Lopez didn't just become a great pianist. She became proof that dreams can come true, no matter where you start." And that is exactly what she was. A dreamer, a fighter, a teacher, a symbol of hope, and above all, a woman who once played piano just to survive, and ended up changing the world.